item on the agenda is for the appointment of committee chair. Are there any nominations for committee chair? I think you're all on mute. Oh, Councillor Chaplin, you're on mute.
Yeah, I propose Clive Jones.
Is that seconded, please?
I second that, Mayor.
Can we have a show of hands? Yes, that's carried. So Councillor Clive Jones is appointed as committee chair. And the second item then on the agenda is appointment of vice chair. Do we have any nominations for that? You're muted, Councillor Salmon.
Sorry, Mayor, that was a legacy hand.
Right, thank you.
Are we staying with the chair, the vice chair that is presently there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, Clive. Yeah.
All right. Can I move Councillor Darren Roberts as the vice chair?
I second that, Mayor.
Can I have a show of hands for that then, please? Yeah, that's carried, Chair.
Right.
Councillor
Thank you very
Darren
much.
Roberts, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. And I'll go to item 3 in the agenda. That's any apologies for absence. And I think we've just got the one, and that's Councillor Darren Roberts.
Yes, Chair.
Right.
This Councillor Darren Roberts.
Otherwise, we're all in attendance. Then, aren't
Everyone
we?
else is present, Chair.
Right. Item 4, declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest taken into account note A and B on the agenda. Any declarations of interest? No. If not, I'll then go on to item 5. That's the audit of the accounts report, Merthyr Tydfil County Borough Council for the year 2019-20, and has to receive a report of audit with pages 5 to 22. Helen, you're going to take us through this report, your report?
Thanks, Chair. Neil's going to go through it today with you, if that's okay, committee, and we'll both be at hand to answer any questions you may have then.
Right. Okay. Over to you then, Neil.
Today we are presenting our report on the audit of financial statements for Merthyr Tydfil for 2019-20. I'm not going to go through it word by word, but would just like to take you through some of the key elements, and we'll be happy to answer any questions at the end. It's been a challenging year for the audit. We've included Exhibit 1 in our report, some of the issues that we've had to deal with as a result of COVID-19, not least of which is the fact that we're reporting to you now rather than in the summer. Whereas usually we would have spent the audit on site in the council buildings, we've had to work remotely and along with the finance team adapt our approach to gathering evidence and meeting council staff. The next area of the report I'd like to point out is our materiality level, which is detailed in paragraphs 2 to 5. This is the level above which we feel that any misstatements would cause the accounts to be misleading to the user. We calculated this as a percentage of gross expenditure, which for 1920 financial year, worked out as 1.94 million. In addition, there are some areas which we believe to be of specific importance to the reader and are therefore classed as material by nature and given a lower materiality threshold. Paragraph 17 of the report states that we intend to issue an unqualified opinion once a letter of representation has been provided. We are, however, going to include 2 emphasis of matter paragraphs. These are set out in Exhibit 2. Both relate to the impact of COVID-19, which has resulted in there being material uncertainty in both valuation of the council's property assets and the valuation of property investments held by the RCT pension fund. These uncertainties are disclosed within the accounts, and the point of the emphasis of matter paragraph is that we feel they are significant enough for us to bring them to the reader's attention. I would point out this is not qualification, this is still an unqualified opinion. Our audit report itself is included in Appendix 2. Going back slightly, I would like to draw your attention to in which we list 2 uncorrected misstatements. These are items that the finance team do not wish to amend financial statements for. We recognise that the impact of these is not significant to the users. Moreover, both will effectively be corrected in the next financial year, so there won't be an error going forward. The last section that I would like to highlight is Appendix 3, which summarises errors which have been amended but we believe should be drawn to your attention. The only 2 that are above our materiality level are shown in Exhibit 3. The first of these is an amendment between 2 lines in the Comprehensive Income and Expenditure Statement due to a grant which is managed under a different heading in 2019 to 20, and the prior year comparators therefore have to be amended to ensure comparability. The second of these amendments is an adjustment of expenditure from the cost of services to other comprehensive income and expenditure in the CIES. This is to reflect the correct technical treatment of an adjustment relating to McLeod pension judgment. I would highlight that neither of these issues have an impact on the total comprehensive income and expenditure. That was all I was going to say on the report. If you are happy to amend, we'll provide the unqualified opinion on Thursday. Before any questions, I would like to thank Adele and the team for their help in what has been a challenging year for all involved in the audit. Their hard work made completing the audit possible. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Neil. Any questions from members? Oh, yes, Councillor Chaplin.
Thank you, Chair. On item 15 mentions £261,000 of net book value items, NBV items have been removed. What does that relate to?
These are assets which we identified during our audit, which the council no longer owns or no longer exists. I don't know whether finance staff want to provide any more detail on that one.
Okay, thank you, Chair. If I could come in here, trying to look at some of the assets involved. Yeah, some of the values involved, they relate to Geshivailog Primary School, and that refers to the main building. We've also got the largest element is about £168,000, and that is in just respect of the extension at Dowlais Primary School, and there's also other items in respect of land at Penrhydre, and the other one, and that's it.
Oh, thank you, Steve.
Involved, and as Neil has just said at the start, it's because of the value of those assets. We didn't think it was worth to amend those in the accounts at this stage because they were not a material amount.
Yeah, thank you, Steve.
Okay, happy with that reply, Councillor Chaplin?
Yeah, yes, happy with that reply, Chair.
Okay. Any other questions from any members? Yes, Councillor Thomas. John?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My question is, it's page 7, Exhibit 2, and it's significant issues arising from the audit. I'd just like to ask the question there on the second paragraph down. The outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic has impacted on global financial and property markets. Due to these market conditions, material valuation uncertainty clauses have been included in the year valuation reports related to the Rhondda Current Half Pension Funds UK Property Investment Funds. The total value of these investments at 31st of March 2020 is 209 million, The authority's share amounts to 15.6 million. My question is, do you believe that our pension fund is sufficient to cover the pension liabilities at this moment in time, please? Thank you.
Which one's going to answer that, Steve?
Is that one for myself? And my answer there would be yes, it is. At this point in time, we are quite confident within the pension fund and the Rhondda Cynon Taf pension fund. So yes, I've got no concerns.
Okay.
Lovely. Thank you.
Happy with that, Councillor Thomas? Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, any comments? Yes, Councillor Salmon.
Clive, sorry, just before we go on to that, Steve, if you can come back in. I've just got a question. Obviously, do you keep an eye on where the money is invested in the pension funds and what exactly, what companies do we invest in? Are they ethical and that sort of thing?
It's certainly the case that obviously that is where Rhondda Cynon Taf will look after the pension fund. What we do get is an annual report every single year, and so we are able to see how the actual fund has been managed and how the fund has performed in the year. But that is really up to the Rhondda Cynon Taf pension fund and the Rhondda Cynon Taf officers.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Okay. Well then, let's ask again. Any other further questions? No? No. Any comments? Any comments from anyone? If not, can I thank the Wales Audit staff for their report. And now we go on to item 6, that's the statement accounts 2019-2020, and consider report of the interim chief executive, pages 23 to 178. Steve, you're going to take us through this?
Okay, thank you, Chair. And what we've basically got here in front of us is the audited accounts for last financial year. So it's the accounts for the year ending the 31st of March 2020. And as set out in the covering report, it includes the accounts for last year, and also as part of the accounts is also the annual governance statement for last year. And if you recall, in a normal year, the accounts have to be audited and reported to Council by the 15th of September. It's obviously for this year, it hasn't been a normal year because of the pandemic. And so authorities were allowed then to compile their draft accounts by the 31st of August. And then for the final accounts then to be reported to a full council by the 30th of November. And that's set out there in paragraph 3.4. So the accounts will be reported to council of this Wednesday. So the covering report is an executive summary of the statement of accounts, which is shown as Appendix A. Paragraph 4 then sets out that the accounts have been prepared in accordance with the international financial reporting standards. So that is a set format which every authority has to abide by. And paragraph 5 sets out that we've also included our share of the jointly controlled operations. These include the Siwyd Coed Crem Joint Committee, the Central South Consortium Joint Committee, and the Cardiff Capital Region City Deal Joint Committee. So then in going to paragraph 7, this then includes our revenue outturn and our capital outturn for 1920. So under 7.1 is the revenue outturn, and I'm glad as well to say that this hasn't been amended from what was reported as the draft accounts. And from a revenue point of view, we are showing a surplus for the year of £2.891 million, which is very, very good indeed. And as a result of the surplus, we have not had to use the amount of reserves that we'd budgeted for last financial year. So those reserves can be put back into the budget reserve. So again, that's exceptional for us as well. So that's the revenue outturn. Then if I take us on to 7.2, which is the capital outturn, it's evident then from the table under 7.2 in that we've underspent by £1.806 million for last financial year, but none of that funding has been lost because the grant funding and whether or not we borrow or not can be transferred and rolled over into this financial year. So there's no money lost on that capital funding. And as you can see under 7.2.2, the draft accounts were reported to the Audit Committee on the 3rd of August and Cabinet on the 15th July. 7.3 then, it states that our general reserves is maintained at £4.7 million as at the 31st of March, and that equates to 3.7% of our net revenue expenditure for the current financial year. And if members recall, our corporate reserves policy states that general reserves should lie between 3.5 and 4% of our budgeted net revenue expenditure. Paragraph 8 then sets out the annual governance statement, and I won't go through that in any detail because it's included as part of the statement of accounts. At this stage as well, Chair, I would like to thank Adele and the whole of the accountancy team for just the hard work that they've done over the last 8 months in what has been a very, very unique year. And also, could I thank Helen and just her audit team as well for the way they have just conducted this audit as well, again in a very challenging time. So Chair, if I stop there and if I could ask if there are any questions that members would want to raise.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions from members? Yes, Councillor Chaplin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. On 8.9, it says the judgment for government's element and the head of regional internal audit service, an overall judgment of unsatisfactory. But then later on in 8.12, it says the recovery transformation improvement plan is being delivered and regular updates are being provided. The council believes these changes will address the unsatisfactory judgments. What measures are we putting in place to make sure that that is happening?
Okay, so what we've basically got there is that is through the recovery plan, as it basically says, it is being presented each month to the Actual Improvement and No Insurance Board, and that is how the actual plan is monitored. And as a result as well, then what we believe we've got within the plan in going through all the work streams, and we are reflecting how we are addressing those issues that Mark has formed his opinion on in just respect of governance. We are confident that that opinion will be changed as we go forward into this financial year. And that is through the recovery plan, which it has been considered at council, I believe, as well, and it's the work streams within that plan. I hope that's answered the question.
Yeah, yes, thank you. Obviously, my concern is obviously, always said, how we measure this on a timely basis to make sure that we're achieving the targets. Is that going to be shared with members?
I would imagine yes. It's at this point in time. I think what happens with the recovery plan is that it goes before the various scrutiny committees. So that'll be the planning going forward. But I shall raise that, and I shall find out what the actual plan is with that recovery plan going before members.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
And to follow that up, Steve, will you notify certainly at least all the audit committee members of what's going to happen then, and confirm that it's going to all the scrutiny committees?
Yes, I certainly will, Chair. What I'll do is that I'll try to get a schedule for you as to what the plans are and where that recovery plan is to be reported.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Any other questions from members? Yes, Robert Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Steve, this is all based, and I assume that the only current plan is still sticking to the medium-term financial plan. So does that still form the basis going forward as part of the groundwork for the new plan taken up to the plan for recovery?
Yes, it's at this point, just as you recall, when we took our medium-term financial plan to the council of last March, we were basing that plan on a revenue settlement of plus 2% in going forward over the course of the plan. At this point in time, we don't know what the actual settlement is going to be. We won't know until December the 22nd, which is quite late. So at this point in time, we are still working on just around that figure of plus 2%. It's obviously then based on a number of scenarios as to whether the settlement is better or worse than that plus 2%. We are starting to formulate some plans as well around what potentially the settlement may be and how then we are going to address whatever funding gap falls out of that. But at the moment, we're still looking at the plus 2%. Parts of the recovery plan will be included already within the MTFP, but there's a recognition as well that some investment may be required and to support that recovery plan. So that will have to be included as part of the MTFP and just in going forward.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. The in the annual governance statement attached to the statement of accounts, and there's reference on page 52 in the statement of accounts about the major risks to the authority. I don't know if you can answer the question, but am I correct in assuming that where there's reference to things like the way we operate or significant changes to processes, that a lot of that work is in the recovery plan and therefore will have quite an impact on your financial planning, amending the current medium-term financial plan?
Yes, that is right, because The recovery plan has also been approved by the Assurance Board. And obviously, yes, some of the risks involved in there have been taken through with the Assurance Board as well. But as you rightly say, really, that it is a case that we have to invest in certain areas as well for us to be able to recover and for us to be able to improve. And then it's a case of factoring that into the MTFP in going forward. Some of it's there just as we speak, but there does need to be a review as to see exactly what we need to invest further.
But you're going to attempt to get some kind of schedule or time scale for members to catch up with what's going on.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Right. Before I bring in Councillor Chaplin, could I suggest, Steve, in relation to that timetable, it might be an idea to include the notification and confirmation of that to all the chairs of the scrutiny committees, so that they're aware of it and can include it in their forward plan.
Yes, okay, Chair. I'll follow that up.
Lovely. Okay, Councillor Chaplin.
Okay, thank you, Chair. At the last audit session, the ongoing MTFP was mentioned, and the fact that concerns have been raised on getting the MTFP in a timely manner. And it was suggested that councillor workshops were going to start in November, but I'm not, at what stage are the councillors going to be involved in workshops moving forward?
Yes, you're right there, Councillor Chaplin, is that was the initial plan. Obviously, with what's happened with just the pandemic and going forward, where we've gone back into a response phase really instead of a recovery phase, and things have slipped a little in respect of the cabinet workshops and the full council workshops. But obviously, the next week or two, a lot of the staff are going to be involved in the organisation of the mass testing and setting up further sites. But obviously then we will try our very best to get some workshops set up for you. Well, it won't be this month now, but hopefully next month we'll have something before we get the settlement on the 22nd. So that's still the aim, but I do just accept the fact that we have slipped a little bit there with that time scale.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay. Any other questions from members? I've got two. One is in relation to on page 26. That's the summary. Right in the very bottom of that, last one, it refers to the contribution from the Lloyd Coy Reserve of 720,000. Am I right? And can you confirm, Steve, that from there on now there'll be an annual contribution of, is it £168,000 a year?
It is, Chair. Yes, it is. It is £168,000 per year, and that has already been factored into the MTFP. Right.
And do we know how many years that's going to continue for, Steve?
As far as I'm concerned, I think it's going to be reviewed after 3 or 4 years, I think it is.
Right.
So as part of the term of this MTFP, it has been included. But when you look at the 4 years from 25, from about 25, 26, then that might not be included at that stage, because there will be a review of the Lloyd Coy Crem accounts.
Right. Okay, thank you for that. And my second question is on page 98, paragraph 18, under the heading Debtors for Local Taxation. And that refers to the debt for the collection of council tax, and that's covering a 5-year period. So if you look at the figures there on the table for the 31st of March 2019, compare it to the 31st of March 2020, the outstanding debt for 31st of March 2020 has gone up by over £500,000 to £5,565,000. Could you perhaps explain to myself and the Audit Committee what might have happened to have such a jump in the debt? Exactly what we do to try and recover those amounts, please?
Yes, it's obviously that £500,000. There are a number of reasons, I suppose, at why the council tax debt would be increasing. A lot of it could well be to do with the fact that there might be that there's a number of customers who are just unable to pay at this stage, and we might have struck just a kind of arrangement with them so that they are given a bit longer to pay. It's something that we are going to have to look into. I don't have all the answers at this point in time. It's obviously, this is last year. For this financial year, you'd expect the figure to be an increase, but for last financial year, then the pandemic wouldn't really have struck that early and to have that effect. So again, it's something I think we have to go back and have a review over as to why that £500,000 increase has happened. What, the just actual measures that we do take, obviously we do chase up debt, and obviously we are aware of the impact that just non-collection of council tax has, and just on the actual funding of services. But again, as I said, really, I would have to go back and have a review of that figure and give you some salient points as to what are the actual reasons for that increase.
Thank you. And of course, that's in addition to this current financial year, where the figure was a few weeks ago, an outstanding debt or collection of council tax of 670,000. So, we've got the previous 5 years where the debt has increased, and we've currently got the in-year financial year where we trying to get the monies in, so to speak. Any other questions from members? If not, any comments from members? Yes, Councillor Salmon.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd just like to thank Steve, Adele, and the team for putting this report and the statement of accounts together. It's no mean feat. And then secondly, I think the big news here is the £2.89 million surplus. And I think that's not to be sneezed at, to be honest. And I do think praise must be given to the officers here and to the Cabinet member, Andrew Barry, for keeping an eye on the figures to make sure that everything is on target, stays in control. And I'm sure they will go on as well. I don't know if the Cabinet member, if he's available, if he wants to come in and say anything as well. But that's it for me.
Thank you. Councillor Barry, do you wish to say anything?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think the figures speak for themselves, really, and the tremendous effort that the staff have put in over the last year. I'm obviously not talking about through the whole of the pandemic, where their performance has been exceptional. But through 18-19, if you remember when we came in 2017, the projections in the medium-term financial plan were that 2019-20 we're going to show a deficit of 6.55 million, and then to turn that round to a 2.89 million shows the tremendous effort of all staff concerned, and not least the governance of that chair. And you know, I think very little praise often comes Audit's way, but certainly in terms of our governance, then Audit plays one of the major roles in that, and you've played your part in terms of how that was turned around, along with budget board, along with monthly and certainly quarterly monitoring reviews of where we stand from both a capital and revenue perspective. So yeah, absolutely great performance by everybody, really. We're in very trying times at the moment, particularly as our staff have been pulled left, right and centre now with all town testing as well. We face another challenging year, but I'm sure we'll overcome with the good work of the Audit Committee and the other governance measures we have in place. I'm sure we'll do very well towards the end of the year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Salmon, is that a legacy hand, or do you want to make another comment?
Legacy hand, Chair, sorry.
Okay. Any other comments? The trick, mind you, and I fully support everything that's been said by Councillor Salmon and Councillor Barry, but the trick from here on in is to try and balance the budget and keep it in surplus again. And as everyone knows, we're in the most unusual of times. Before I go to the recommendation, I would like to also thank Steve Jones, Adele Lewis, all the financial staff and Audit Wales, because we're in unprecedented times. We're all having to work differently and to put these reports together and get these accounts together in the circumstances we find ourselves in the United Kingdom, and particularly Merthyr Tydfil, is no mean feat. So, Steve, could you pass on the thanks of the Audit Committee to all the staff involved? I'll go on to the recommendations. I'll read them out. It's on page 23, paragraph 2.1. The audited statement of accounts for 2019-20 being the financial year ended 31st of March 20 be considered and recommended to the Council of the 25th of November 2020 for approval. 2.2. The annual governance statement for 2019-20 be considered and recommended to the Council of the 25th of November for approval. So as I indicated earlier before the start of the meeting, I'll deal with the vote in this way. Can I ask for any abstentions? None.
Chair, I'll have to abstain. I had a computer glitch at the beginning of this session, so
right.
I'll have to abstain. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you for that. Anyone against? If not, all those in for please indicate now.
It's carried, Chair.
That's carried, isn't it, Smile? Thank you very much.
Yes, carried.
Thank you. Back to the agenda. We now go to item 7. That's the Wales Audit Office. It's the review of the whistleblowing and corporate safeguarding to consider the report of the Chief Officer Social Services, pages 179 to 186. And this report has been, the authors are John A., Fran Donnelly and Lisa Curtis-Jones. So Who's taking this, Lisa?
It'll be me, Chair.
Right. I thought it was. Right. Okay. If you can, over to you. Thank
Okay,
you.
I'll just briefly go through the report then and obviously answer any questions. So the Welsh Audit Office audited our safeguarding arrangements back in 2015 and then further reviewed the safeguarding and whistleblowing arrangements in August 2019. So the basis of the report is to look at the review of the whistleblowing and corporate safeguarding. So the Council had completed an internal review of safeguarding back in 2014 following the Rotherham inquiry. So if you remember, that was around children being sexually exploited and concerns within that council. As a result of that, a corporate safeguarding policy was implemented. It's quite a successful group, and that's been meeting quarterly for the last couple of years. Part 5 of the report outlines the actions which we took from the original audit, and all those actions being implemented and being really positive, and there's now training in place, and we've taken sort of lots of steps forward, I think, with regards to safeguarding. Welsh Audit Office came in to review the arrangements and the whistleblowing in August 2019. Some of that was in response to one particular case that they were auditing, but as they were coming in, they decided to look at all of safeguarding arrangements. The 6.5 outlines the recommendations of their report and our responses to it. I will say all those recommendations have been addressed and all the actions are in place. And one thing I'd like to sort of highlight is that, you know, throughout the pandemic this year, safeguarding has remained our priority. All child protection and adult protection referrals have been dealt with in a timely manner. There's been no delay at all, even though we've had staff working at home and perhaps not available, you know, 100%, but we've made sure that people have been seen and safeguarded. And recently we've had a CIW inspection where they commented that they felt, you know, we were safe, which I think, you know, that's what I want to hear as the Chief Officer. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and that's just a summary of the report.
Thank you. Any questions, members? No questions. I've got two. First of all, Lisa, is this report going to be automatically referred to the Social Services Scrutiny Committee?
It's not on the work programme, but I can send it to the Scrutiny Committee if it's felt appropriate. I was advised to bring it to Audit Committee on the basis it was an audit report, so obviously you need to review that. But yeah, I can send it to Scrutiny as well. Yes.
You know, I'll ask other members to what their views are, but I feel that as well as us dealing with it, I think it's appropriate for it to be dealt with at the scrutiny level in social services.
Yeah, that's fine. I can send that.
Okay, that's fine. And could I just ask a question on page 181? It's headed the summary of the action that took place, and it's in relation to transport, development top tips guidance for bus drivers and escorts on commissioned transport and training sessions delivered to bus drivers and escorts jointly with the police. This is obviously a very important aspect of safeguarding. Is that guidance and briefings? Because obviously escorts and bus drivers change, I would have thought, fairly frequently. Is that something, if for example, if there's a new bus driver on the scene or a new escort, are they spoken to about the important aspects of safeguarding in that situation?
Yeah, the guides that we've set up, so what we call them is top tips, so they're easy reads and, you know, easy to understand, where people contact us, you know, to raise safeguarding concerns and what they need to do. That's rolled out regularly, so the safeguarding lead, John A, will make sure that, you know, each company has those updated guidance. What there is a rolling sort of training program, so that there are dates, and then if there are any new drivers, taxi drivers, bus drivers, then they would join each training session. We make sure we cover everybody as we go along, similarly to what we do with our staff. Obviously, it's a bit more difficult now in the sense of training has to be online because we can't meet face to face. So that's the challenge that we're currently sort of looking at. But yeah, anybody new, then they'd be put forward and we'd make sure that they have that guidance.
Right, thank you. Any other questions from members? Yes, Councillor Tyree. You're on mute, Councillor Tyree.
Have you had much of an increase in referrals during the COVID time? Have you had many more referrals?
In all honesty, I mean, early on in the pandemic, the referral rate went down, so there was quite a big decrease. We probably didn't see the effect as much as some other authorities because we were still doing face-to-face visits throughout. But obviously, because schools were closed, we weren't having those referrals in on children. Those who weren't accessing online learning, obviously any concerns, teachers were still flagging those and referring them in. Adult protection, I think, was quite steady throughout. Then we saw an increase as the sort of lockdown lifted in July. We started seeing a steady increase in referrals. So we're probably where we're at, where we expected to be, the same as last year now with figures. What I would say is that probably what we're seeing is more complex cases coming in. So whereas maybe, you know, I don't know, making these figures up, but a high percentage, sort of 8 out of 10 would perhaps not go to safeguarding. We're now seeing maybe, you know, most of them are going to safeguarding rather than going into a different route like early help, because things are being referred to us and they're more likely to be safeguarding at the moment because of, you know, people having been isolated and concerns that they're not being supported maybe for a couple of months.
Oh, right. Thanks. Thanks for that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? You still got your hand up, Councillor Tyree. That's it. Oh, Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a follow-up on a touch of the of guardianship of buses, etc., etc. So I take it then that there's a list produced to the department, because on taxis or buses, whatever, people can fall ill and people substitute. Are these substitutes known then by the local authority if these things do happen? That is, drivers or escorts or whatever. So that's my question. Obviously, probably you've got it there, but are they known and on a list? Because somebody could come in at any time, somebody could be ill in the morning, and some escort could come in, and perhaps we're not aware of it. So I'd like to know, are they listed, drivers, escorts, etc., and substitutes? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so each company would be responsible for holding a list of the people they've got working for them. What we would ask is that, say, so if a company A has 20 people employed by them, and you know there are 5 of those drivers who regularly do, you know, bus routes, and then we've trained all those 5. What we would ask is, regardless who's doing the runs, is that all 20 of those drivers are trained and they have the guidance. So in theory, they should be that if, you know, I was driving a bus today, but I'm ill tomorrow, the person who's covering for me would be, you know, they'd have done the guidance, so they're aware of the process. Certainly that's the same with escorts and taxi drivers. Any of those, you know, running a taxi with school children in it, or, you know, running buses or escorts, should all have seen the guidance and should all be following the same rules, whether they're regular drivers or temporary ones.
Okay. You still got your hand up. That's it. Lovely. I'll ask again. Any other questions from anyone? No. Any comments from anyone? No comments. Can I suggest to members, my earlier suggestion, that this matter be referred as well to the Social Services Scrutiny Committee, and that could be put down as 2.2 in addition to 2.1. If there's anyone who's not happy with that, would you like to speak now? I take it that you're quite happy for that to be the second part of the recommendations, that this report is referred to the Social Services Scrutiny Committee, and Lisa has said she's quite happy to do that. Thank you. If there's no other comments, I'll then go back to the recommendations on page 79. Under 2.1, the progress made against the Corporate Safeguarding Action Plan be debated and noted. And 2.2, that this report of the review of the whistleblowing and corporate safeguarding be referred to the Social Services Scrutiny Committee. I then deal with the voting as I indicated at the start of the meeting. Any abstentions? Any members voting against? All members voting for? Please vote now.
Carried, Chair.
That is carried. Thank you very much, and thank you, Lisa.
Oh, Clive's on mute, I think.
I don't know how that happened. Yeah, that's okay. Item 8, information reports, and that's to receive copies of the published internal audit reports for members' information, 187 to 188. Now, members will be aware that there's a new system which is, you should have had an email, all of you, from Anne Taylor as to how to navigate to get into these information reports, which will be on ModGov. Now, I haven't actually got into it myself because, to be fair to Anne Taylor, she's explained how we follow her instructions and we get into it. Are all members happy with the system that's now before us from Anne Taylor? Right, I'm not getting any comments back. You're all happy?
I've been having some difficulty with ModGov, but I'll sort it out this week.
Yeah, right. Yes, Clive, I'm fine, Clive. I had to have help from Anne, but I could get access now.
Right. That's what I want to know, because I intend to get in touch with Anne so she can, although she sent it out to us, to talk me through it.
Yes, Clive, mine didn't work initially.
Ah, right. This is what I wanted to know. Robert?
Thank you, Chair. I think I'm the only one that's sort of external to the system, and Anne has explained it to me, and it's gone just fine. I can access the report as well. Thank you.
That's good. That's good to hear. Right. Okay. Thank you for that. And there's 3 reports actually there. Unless anybody has got any strong views that they want to bring it and have a debate in the audit committee, and nobody's indicated, you're all happy with that. Item 9, that's the reflection and evaluation of the meeting. I think we've gone through the reports. We've debated them properly. Robert, is your hand up, or is it?
I had a question actually, Chair, on one of the informal reports.
Oh, sorry.
and it's regarding the overpayments of systems that I think that Helen has produced the report on. It is my understanding, I mean, as I read the report, there appears to be duplicate payments against, sort of example, the same invoice where there's been an overpayment or a VAT error. But it's my experience, I don't quite understand how this might occur, because my experience says that once, for example, an order is raised and then a subsequent invoice is submitted for payment against that order, that the system automatically closes down the transaction once the full payment has been completed. Am I correct in thinking that the system is more flexible than that, and this might be the cause for a lot of the overpayments or the errors being made, because the system electronically doesn't do that?
Yeah. Mark, can you answer that question?
I'll try my best, Chair. I've had a few IT issues, so I'm on my phone at the moment, so hopefully you can see me. The system generally, unfortunately, Helen can't be with us today. Her father passed away last week with COVID, unfortunately. Otherwise, she'd be able to answer the question. But yeah, the system is more flexible than that. It's not all. They're not all order-based sort of items, Mr. Williams. So that's part, you've already sort of given part of the answer yourself, really. You know, the relative value of the overpayments was very, very small in relation to the value and volume of payments that are made in 12 months. But nevertheless, there were a couple of weaknesses that we identified that are highlighted in the report. And it is about sort of having processes in place to make sure that duplicate payments aren't made. But what I can do, when Helen's back in work, I can maybe ask her to circulate to members sort of what the issues were in a little bit more detail, if that would be helpful.
Yeah. Okay, Robert?
Yes, okay, thanks, Mark.
Okay, no problem.
Is that it, Robert? Anything else?
No, fine, thank you, Chair.
Okay. Right. I better do this, otherwise I'll have my knuckles wrapped by my Morgan. But on the information report, I'll go to the recommendations, which is on page 187 under 2.2.1. Members determine any reports they wish to consider in more detail at the future meeting, including receiving updates from appropriate officers on progress made in implementing recommendations. I'll go through it again. Any abstentions? Anyone against? All those members for, please vote no.
It's carried.
Yeah, that's carried. Thank you. And as I stated, as I started it, the item 9, the reflection evaluation of the meeting, we have dealt with everything there properly and in accordance. Item 10, any other business? I know Mark Thomas wants to come in with that. Mark. Are you on mute, Mark?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Right. Yeah, members will be aware the next scheduled audit committee is on the 4th of January. Because of the Christmas break and the timeline for producing reports would have to be produced probably within about 3 weeks. So we discussed it earlier in the pre-meeting, and I've had the opportunity to discuss it now with officers and Audit Wales staff as well. We've got no real need for the meeting to be held on the 4th of January. The one item that we would have wanted to have gone up is to do with the corporate risk register. But the key part feeding into that is the settlement from Welsh Government, which it won't be announced till the 22nd of December. So there won't be time to update the risk register to bring it to members on the 4th of January. So on that basis, we were proposing to cancel the meeting on the 4th of January. The next scheduled meeting then is on the 22nd of February. So we'll be able to bring Andrew Mogford will be able to bring the corporate risk register to members at that point with a meaningful update of that, particularly the financial or the likely financial pressures facing the authority for next year. And there'll also be a joint audit and scrutiny committee likely to be towards the end of January to discuss the budget for next year as well. So there will be meetings held, but not the scheduled one on the 4th of January if members are in agreement.
Yeah. Well, I would think members, unless they've got any particular issue with having an item for the 4th of January, would all be happy to leave it to the meeting on the 22nd of February.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, no problem.
Yeah, I can see a number of members nodding their heads. So
Yeah,
we're
no
happy.
problem.
We're happy with that, Mark. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Right. I've got any other business under item 10. Can I thank you all for your attendance this afternoon? And I'll see the elected members of this committee in approximately an hour's time at the Democratic Services Committee. Thank you all very much.
Bye all.
All the best.
Thanks, Chair.
Chairman.
Bye all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Mike, are you still on there?